So the one thing missing from most depersonalization advice that I see isn't a special meditation technique, it's not a supplement, it's not even a special way to calm down. It's something quite different, because the chances are you've tried all those kind of things and it didn't really work, and in some cases it may have actually made your symptoms worse, and there's a good reason for that. So if you saw my last video, you'll see I mentioned a specific nervous system state many people with depersonalization can be in, which is known as the dorsal vagal shutdown. And I mentioned that in that state, you can have depersonalization symptoms, but no anxiety and no stress. And that's then when most depersonalization advice fails, because most of the advice is focused on what I would call first stage depersonalization, where you have anxiety, you have stress, and you have depersonalization symptoms. But then if you have no stress and no anxiety, what do? Because you still have depersonalization symptoms. So I previously had depersonalization for 10 years and I was able to recover with no medication. And for most of that time, I did have a lot of anxiety and stress with depersonalization. But then there were times when there was no stress and anxiety, and yet depersonalization symptoms were still there. And I didn't understand why. And then many years later, over more research, I now really understand why. And it's because you end up being in the dorsal vagal shutdown. That's like the second stage of depersonalization symptoms. So if that sounds like you, where you have depersonalization symptoms, but no anxiety and no stress, this video is going to change everything for you. Because the one thing that keeps being missed from depersonalization recovery advice is you don't need to calm down. You don't need to reduce stress and anxiety because you don't have it at all. What you need is gentle activation. So you don't need your nervous system to calm down because the brakes are fully on. It's as calm down as it can be. So this video is going to show you how to shift out of the dorsal vagal shutdown response that can keep depersonalization symptoms going. When you have depersonalization for long periods of time, that ends up becoming overwhelming for your nervous system. So you end up shifting out of the fight-flight response, which you can imagine being like an acceleration pedal on your nervous system. It's difficult to maintain that for a long period of time. So what can happen is, if this becomes overwhelming, then your nervous system shifts into dorsal vagal shutdown. This is like a low power energy conservation mode because your nervous system has been hyper aroused for so long. So instead, it moves into hypoarousal. So what that means is it puts the brakes on your nervous system. That's then why you could end up having depersonalization symptoms like numbness and dissociation, but no anxiety and stress, because before it had acceleration going and it had the brake going. Now it's just the brakes because it ran out of fuel. So firstly, there are two principles to understand before we go into the various things you can do to shift out of this state. The first thing is, what we are really doing is we're thinking in terms of nervous system states, but we're not just thinking of the fight, flight, freeze response. We are thinking in terms of what's known as a polyvagal theory. I go into that in more detail in the previous video, so after you watch this, check that one out. But the idea is polyvagal theory sees three main nervous system states: the sympathetic arousal state, the ventral vagal parasympathetic state, and the dorsal vagal shutdown state. So if you have depersonalization symptoms but no stress and anxiety, probably you were in dorsal vagal shutdown. So what we are trying to do is to shift up back into your window of tolerance, into the ventral vagal state. That's the goal. The second thing to understand is most of these techniques I'm going to go through shortly are about stimulating your vagus nerve. So the idea is your mind doesn't just communicate to your body. The opposite is true. Your body communicates with your mind. So when you're doing these various techniques, you are sending a signal to stimulate the vagus nerve, which sends a signal of safety to your brain. So what that's doing is gradually shifting you out of the shutdown response into the ventral vagal state. Some of these techniques may sound weird, but you can try them today and see what happens. The first thing you can try is progressive muscle squeezing. So the idea is lie down, and what you want to do is put your attention on your legs and your feet, and you want to just gently start squeezing your leg and feet muscles. And you want to squeeze them quite tight, but not so much that it hurts. And you want to hold them there for about 10 seconds. So you're squeezing and holding that squeeze tight, holding onto that tension for 10 seconds, and then you let go. Give yourself a short break, and then for let's say like another 10 seconds, and now you're going to do the same thing again, but now you're also squeezing your thigh muscles. Hold that for 10 seconds and release. You can see where this is going. Then you focus on the rest of your body. So you're progressively squeezing and releasing different muscle groups in your body, but you're adding additional muscle groups. So you have your legs being squeezed and you release, then your legs and then you have all your legs, and then your hips muscles that you're squeezing, then you release. Then you do that again, but this time you add your chest muscles and back muscles. You keep doing this until you end up squeezing and releasing tension in all of your body, including your face muscles. So by the end of it, you're squeezing your feet muscles, your legs, your chest, your hips, your back, your arms, and your face muscles. You're squeezing them, holding it for 10 seconds and releasing. When you do that progressively and taking short breaks in between, you're not only releasing stress, this is sending a signal to your body that it's safe. So that's the first thing you can try. The next thing you can try is gentle exercise. So it needs to be something gentle because you don't want to add too much activation to your nervous system. Otherwise, it interprets it as too much stress. So going for long walks is probably the best exercise you can do if you are stuck in this dorsal vagal shutdown, because it's not putting stress on your body as long as you're not walking too fast, right? Just go for a gentle walk, but the idea is you go for a longer period of time. So at least 30 minutes, 40 minutes, that kind of thing. Because not only is it just generally good to go outside and go for a walk, it's changing your breathing patterns. And there is something about walking, I don't fully know what it is, but it sends a signal again through a nervous system of safety. So that's an easy one you can try, but that's something, as all these techniques, you don't just do it once. Make it a habit to do this every day. Other type of exercises you can do are resistance training, so things like weightlifting or calisthenics, things like squats and push-ups. But again, you want to do this gently. You don't want to do it too hard and too fast. You might want to start with something really simple, like slow push-ups, slow sit-ups, that kind of thing, or squats, but you don't want to do too many reps to begin with. Start it gently, do gentle reps, and over time progressively increase it. The next thing you can try are yoga, somatic exercises, and gentle stretching. So you can go on YouTube and there are many free videos on different yoga poses and exercises you can do. Specifically, I recommend looking for trauma-informed yoga or yoga for getting out of the freeze response. There may even be yoga for getting out of the dorsal vagal shutdown. I recommend trying these and doing it as a daily practice to help you shift out of that dorsal vagal shutdown. You can also look up what's known as somatic exercises. I already did a video on some of this before. One of my last videos I showed how doing particular eye movements sends a signal through your nervous system to shift back into the parasympathetic ventral vagal state. If you look on YouTube, you'll find again free videos on ear massage techniques, different body movements you can do. Some of them seem very simple, but I encourage you to experiment and try different somatic exercises. And you'll see that even if you have traditional depersonalization with anxiety and stress, it really helps to reduce that. You'll also find that doing just general stretching, which yoga does to a certain extent, it definitely helps you to stretch. When you look at doing different stretches, this helps your body to release the tension and what I believe are different like trapped emotions that stay stuck in us. I know that sounds weird. My own experiences have shown me that emotions sort of do get stuck in our body. So stretching is a way to help release that. Another thing you can do is humming and making a foghorn sound. I know it sounds strange, but if you start humming, the vibration stimulates your vagus nerve, which helps to shift you out of dorsal vagal shutdown. It also helps to reduce stress. So literally when I say humming, I really do mean making sounds like doing that but for longer periods of time and repeatedly. One of the things that really works though is what's known as the foghorn sound. So you can even try this now. If you make this voo sound, but do it in a way where you're vibrating it through your body and you're bringing the air up from your stomach. So you're not breathing in from your chest. So for example, you would do this 8 times. You would do that. And you give yourself time to breathe in between. And you can feel, I can feel it now, you can sort of feel your body releasing bits of tension that are here and there. You can also try grounding exercises. This is what's given for traditional depersonalization advice, and I do believe it still helps here. So what you do is you get into the habit every day of naming 5 things that you can see, but you're really looking at them. And then you name 4 things that you can hear, then 3 things that you can touch, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. The idea is you're putting your attention on these things long enough to acknowledge they are there, which is sending a signal to your body and mind. I am here in the present moment. So the more you're doing this on a daily basis, the more it's retraining your mind to focus on the present and how it's safe now. The next thing you can do is grounding meditations. This is something that helped me a lot when I had depersonalization. There are loads on YouTube that are free. So look on YouTube for grounding meditations. But the idea is you want one that gets you to visualize something that represents being connected to the ground, so being connected to the earth. So some of them involve like visualizing light coming from above, but the ones that I find work really well is when it can include that, but it's when you imagine tree roots coming out of your body, so out of your feet, for example, out of your legs, and going into the ground, and then you imagine red energy coming up and going into your body, but specifically in the area in between your legs. So for some reason, I can't explain why, but when I used to do those kind of meditations for about 10-15 minutes a day, imagining that red energy coming from the earth into me, I can't fully explain why, but over time I noticed there did seem to be a connection with me doing that meditation and having less depersonalization symptoms. So I recommend experimenting, trying different ones on YouTube, see which ones that work for you. One possible reason why it works is because it's helping you to stay focused in the present moment, but also it's helping you to keep your breathing patterns to be much deeper. So you're not breathing shallow, you end up focusing in a way on one thing, which helps your nervous system to calm down and helps you to breathe slower. That's one possible reason why I think it works. The next one is probably the biggest thing you can do to shift out of dorsal vagal shutdown. But it's going to sound so simple that it may seem unbelievable, but it is actually perfectly logical. So what you really need is to socialize. And that's because when we are in the ventral vagal state, so when we are in that calm window of tolerance, in that parasympathetic ventral vagal state, that's when our nervous system is open to socializing. Because we are social creatures, right? We are meant to be with people. So what you can do is be around people that you feel comfortable and safe with. And the more you do that for longer periods of time, you experience what's known as co-regulation of your nervous system. So when you're around people who have calmer nervous systems, that has an effect on your nervous system. I don't know how it works, but it's like we pick up subconsciously signals of safety from other people being around them. because the opposite is if you're alone for too long, then your nervous system gets signals of unsafety. And that's because for hundreds of thousands of years, I don't know how long our species has been around or previous species, we were always in tribes. And when you think about it, it makes sense because our ancestors and their ancestors for thousands of years lived in tribes, right, in small communities. So our nervous systems have an association with being around people and safety. So when you are away from safe connection for too long, the opposite happens. You're not getting that signal of safety for long enough. So I recommend making a habit of being around people you feel comfortable and safe with. It doesn't mean you even have to talk to them that much, just sometimes being around them for longer periods of time over time helps your nervous system to shift out of dorsal vagal shutdown. If you are in an environment where you don't really feel comfortable around the people you're with, then you may have to go out of your comfort zone and go and find other people to connect with. So you may have to go and meet new people. You may have to contact people you previously knew. Maybe you have some old friends that you connected with or other family members. And the idea is the more that you are with them, the more you are sending, the more you communicate with them, that gives you an opportunity to receive a signal of safety to your nervous system. Then there's a hidden factor that I think also gets missed out when it comes to recovering from dorsal vagal shutdown. And that's the way that you're breathing. Because as I mentioned before, when you're in that first state of depersonalization where you have anxiety and stress, probably your breathing patterns were fast and shallow, right? That's part of anxiety and stress. But when you move past that into the second stage of depersonalization, which is dorsal vagal shutdown, when you are in that state, you can still have that shallow breathing pattern as a habit, even though you don't have the stress and anxiety. And I realized that's what I was doing before in the past. So then when I was on a daily basis noticing my breathing, I was gently trying to retrain myself to breathe more from my belly instead of my chest and to gradually breathe more deeper. And that doesn't mean you force yourself to do this, because when you try and force yourself, that can get picked up as a signal of stress. So you may notice you're breathing more shallow. So what you can try and do is also add in some breathing practices. So for example, the 4-7-8 breathing technique, where you breathe in for 4, you hold it for 7, and you breathe out for 8. And you do that repeatedly for like 10-15 minutes. But again, don't overdo it. Don't try and force it. These are things to just experiment and try out, and you can see which one works. And you don't want to get too obsessed with how you're breathing too. The idea is you just notice, oh, I think I'm breathing a bit shallow, and then you gently try and breathe a bit deeper. And over time, as you do that more and more, you may notice that you're breathing in a much more calmer, deeper way, and that is helping you to shift out of dorsal vagal shutdown. And here's something you should definitely remember when trying any of these things. Like I mentioned just now, don't force any of these things. Because so the way that you do these things is important. Because if you're trying these things and you're creating an expectation that it must work, or that I need a result now, or even I need a result in the future, that sense of frustration, that sense of desperation, that can get picked up as a signal of stress, which can then keep you stuck. So you want to do these things in a patient, gentle way. You don't want to try and push things too much or force things. Ideally, you are doing these things with no expectation of the outcome, which I know may sound a bit strange, but with practice, you can see it as, for example, when someone goes to the gym, they're not going there expecting in 1 week to have the results. They know, okay, it's going to come at some point in the future. So they just focus on the process of exercise. That's the same mindset to have. Just focus on the process in a gentle, relaxed way, and know that at some point in the future, this is helping you to get the result you want. And the same traditional advice given for depersonalization is the same, where you still surrender and allow the symptoms to be. So whatever you're experiencing, even if it's the numbness, even if it's depersonalization with no anxiety and stress, still continue to surrender to that. That also means continue living your life. the same advice of surrender to the symptoms is applying to this too. So still go to work, still go to school, still do things that you would normally do. As long as you're not doing things that are bad habits, that are going to actually make things worse for your nervous system, then it's okay. So you still want to use common sense and still apply basic self-care. But it also means you're not avoiding your life. Because as you get on with your life, as you do things normally, as best as you can, you are again sending that signal of safety because you're not avoiding things. Part of that idea of self-care is something that I think gets missed, which is the amount of daylight that you are getting. So when you're in dorsal vagal shutdown, you'll probably also have disrupted sleep. So what you want to do to improve your sleep is every morning either go outside to get direct daylight, ideally for like 15-20 minutes, or if you can't do that, you can get a light therapy lamp. So you can get the brightness of about, I think it's a minimum of 10,000 lux. So that's the measurement for brightness. And the idea is you have that turned on, have it facing you for like 20-30 minutes. You obviously need to check the instructions for the one you buy. And that helps. The reason why daylight in the morning or the simulated light helps you with your sleep and dorsal vagal shutdown is because it's bringing your circadian rhythm, so your biological clock, back into balance. Because that's the thing that tells your body when to release certain chemicals and run certain processes. So that means when the evening comes, then your body will release melatonin earlier so that you can sleep better. Because if you don't get daylight at all, and if you're getting it much later, then your circadian rhythm goes out of sync. So that means you try and sleep and you're just there like, I don't feel tired at all, because your body and mind don't know when to release the melatonin. So every day I recommend doing that. Get daylight in the morning. Even if you're somewhere where it doesn't really have a lot of daylight, just go out for longer, or get one of those light therapy lamps and use it every day. The reason why that helps with shifting out of dorsal vagal shutdown is because sleep is one of the best things for your nervous system. So if you have bad sleep habits, your sleep isn't going to be good, so your nervous system won't get the restoration that it needs. So sleep is very important anyway, but when you have depersonalization and when you have dorsal vagal shutdown, that's what you really need as well. You need your nervous system to be restored, and sleep helps with that. I also need to give a bit of a warning, because when you start doing these things, you may start to realize, oh, I am starting to feel like the depersonalization is going away. I'm starting to feel more emotions now. And what can happen is, because you were previously at some point experiencing anxiety and stress with depersonalization, you may start to have some of that come back. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. It means it's working. Because remember, this was becoming overwhelming. So I had to put the brakes on it. You could say put this on pause. So now that your body is feeling more relaxed, your nervous system is experiencing more safety, then it feels like, okay, now I can continue those previously unfinished processes. So what that means is it presses play button again. So it put anxiety, stress on pause because it was overwhelming, but now it feels safe enough to bring it back again. So if you start feeling some anxiety and stress, don't worry, don't panic. It means that you are shifting back. And now you're not in the second stage of depersonalization anymore. You've gone back to the first stage. So you're making progress. So then that means the traditional depersonalization advice applies. So still surrender to stress, allow the anxiety to be there, don't fight it, completely let it be there. And over time, you'll see, eventually it goes away, because it's almost like it's burning through the anxiety. It's just kind of processing it. So you could say, to sum up everything we've gone through right now, recovery from dorsal vagal shutdown is surrendering to this experience, continue living your life as normal, and then also daily gentle activation. That's what will help you to shift out of this experience of dorsal vagal shutdown. And you could also add another thing, which is consistency. That's why I said it has to be a daily thing. Because I know how it is. Sometimes we can do these things for a week or 2 weeks, and then we slip back into old habits and maybe we forget to do these things. So then that means your nervous system stops receiving the signal of safety, and so it has to continue with the shutdown response. So consistency does matter. So if you realize, oh no, I was doing really great, I was doing all these things, making progress for a few weeks, I saw improvements, and then I don't know what happened, I just stopped doing these things. It's okay, don't beat yourself up about it. Just go back to doing those things you're doing before, and then just stay consistent. And I understand when you have depersonalization, your memory and concentration, your focus can make you not be consistent. That does happen. So I've got 2 things I can give you that will help you to be consistent. The first thing is I've made a 1-page free PDF summary of this entire video. This way, if you haven't remembered what we've discussed, you can get this PDF, you can read it, you can print it out, and every day you can look at it to remember the kind of things that you can do to shift out of this state. So click the link in the description below and in the pinned comment, follow the instructions, and then I'll email that to you directly. The second thing I can give you is one-on-one coaching. So this is exactly the kind of thing I help people in coaching with. So not just remaining consistent in their daily habit that helps them to recover from depersonalization, or also other things like maladaptive daydreaming, anxiety, depression, but also I can help you to see what you might be missing in your recovery journey, because the chances are, as if you got this far in the video, I believe you are really serious about recovery, but also you are looking for answers. You are looking for what you could be doing wrong or what you might have missed that's keeping you stuck with depersonalization. So I can help you with that to identify what things you could be missing. Because once you identify those things and I help you to start applying it, that could be the game changer that helps you to fully recover. But here's the thing, I only have 4 slots available now for my deep dive coaching. Also, I'm running a discount which is going to last until the 8th of March or until the rest of the slots are filled. So click the link below to book a call with me so you don't miss this special offer that I have, because after the 8th of March or after the slots are filled, the prices are going to go back up. So if you've been thinking about working with me, now is the time to do it before the prices go up. Don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button so you can be told when I release the next video. And let me know in the comments, what is the main thing you've taken from this video that you're going to start applying today? And I'll see you in the next video. Take care.